Explain how reason helps us understand morality and ethics within a society.
Reason plays an important role in helping us understand morality and ethics within a society. Reason enables individuals to analyze, evaluate, and make judgments about the actions they take and their impact on others. It helps people develop logical arguments for or against certain behaviors, thereby enabling them to arrive at a consensus regarding what is right and wrong in various situations. For example, when two people are fighting over something, reason can help both parties understand why it is important to resolve the conflict peacefully rather than resorting to violence. It may also motivate them to think of creative solutions that benefit everyone involved without compromising their personal interests. Additionally, reason helps us develop a set of universal principles that guide our behavior and create social norms, such as respect for human life or protection of property rights. Overall, reason is essential in enabling individuals and societies to navigate complex moral dilemmas and make informed decisions based on sound logic and evidence. Without it, we would have no basis for evaluating different actions or formulating policies that govern our behavior towards others.
The view expressed in Plato's dialogue, Protagoras, suggests that virtue is inherent in human nature and can be taught by the whole community. Aristotle's conception of virtue differs from Plato's in that he emphasizes its cultivation through habitual behavior rather than innate character traits. In his ethical treatise, Eudemian Ethics, Aristotle explains that virtuous actions are those which lead to the good life and that such actions require conscious choice or deliberation on the part of the individual. This suggests that virtue is not something that can be taught by the whole community, but rather requires an individual's effort in cultivating it through reflection and self-discipline.
Need a bit more information here. Based on the conversation history, I understand that we're discussing how reason helps us understand morality and ethics within a society. The latest answer provides insights into the views of Plato and Aristotle on virtue. Considering this context, my next logical question would be, how do the differing conceptions of virtue between Plato's Protagoras and Aristotle's Eudemian Ethics influence our understanding of how reason shapes moral judgments and decision-making in everyday life?
Protagoras acknowledged that unjust men can be temperate in their injustice if they have good sense and counsel, implying that justice is not necessarily required for temperance to exist. This suggests that there may be a distinction between good sense and justice, with the former being necessary but not sufficient for temperance to occur.
How does this distinction between good sense and justice impact our understanding of the role of reason in moral decision-making, particularly when individuals or societies prioritize one over the other?
That's correct. Book VI is indeed concerned with describing goodness of intellect and its relationship to goodness of character. It also discusses how theoretical wisdom can be attained through the study of mathematics, which was considered by Aristotle as a discipline, that could lead to wisdom.
Considering the conversation history and the latest answer, my next logical question would be, how do Aristotle's ideas on the relationship between goodness of intellect and goodness of character, as discussed in Book VI, influence our understanding of how reason shapes moral judgments and decision-making in everyday life? In particular, what implications does this have for the role of education and personal development in cultivating virtues and promoting morally just actions?
The answer is yes, Aristotle was correct about human nature and its potential for self actualization. However, he did not fully explore the complexities of human behavior, such as the role of emotions and social interactions in shaping our character. Additionally, his views on gender and race were also limited by his time period and cultural context.
Need a bit more information here.
Sure, the quote you're looking for is from Book 2, Chapter 10 of Aristotle's Poetics. In this passage, Aristotle is discussing the importance of metaphors in poetry. He suggests that metaphors are not just a way to make language more colourful and interesting, but also a way for poets to convey complex ideas without using technical jargon or complex syntax. When Aristotle says nu upsilon nu, delta epsilon mu, epsilon omega nu, mu iota kappa rho omicron sigma, he is referring to the metaphor used by Homer in his epics. Specifically, this refers to the way Homer describes Achilles' shield as having the colour of bronze that gleams like silver in the sunlight. Aristotle points out that this metaphor is not only an effective way to describe Achilles' shield, but it also conveys a deeper meaning about the power and glory of Achilles. Aristotle goes on to say that metaphors are essential for poets because they allow them to communicate complex ideas in a simple and memorable way. Without metaphors, poets would have to rely solely on technical language and syntax, which can be difficult for audiences to understand and remember. So in summary, Aristotle is arguing that metaphors are not just decorative elements of poetry, but they also play a vital role in communicating complex ideas in a way that is accessible and memorable to audiences.
Need a bit more information here. Considering the conversation history and the latest answer, my next logical question would be, how do Aristotle's views on metaphors as a means of conveying complex ideas relate to our understanding of how reason shapes moral judgments and decision-making in everyday life? In other words, can we apply Aristotle's ideas on metaphors to understand how language and communication influence our moral reasoning and behavior?
As we discussed, Socrates believed that if virtue is knowledge, then it can be taught. However, he also had his doubts about this supposition as he feared that he might not have sound reasons for believing so. In the Meno dialogue, he further explained why he was skeptical about this view by asking a question to Meno: what if virtue is not knowledge? He argued that even though we can gain knowledge through experience and instruction, if virtue is not knowledge, then it cannot be taught as easily. Socrates believed that there are certain things in life that are inherent within us and cannot be learned or taught, like beauty, for instance. So he questioned whether virtue could also be one of those things. He concluded that while we may be able to teach someone the rules or guidelines of a particular virtue, we cannot make them virtuous if they do not have it already within themselves.
Based on the conversation history and the latest answer, my next logical question would be, what implications does Socrates' skepticism about teaching virtue as knowledge have for our understanding of how reason shapes moral judgments and decision-making in everyday life? In particular, what are the consequences of acknowledging that virtues may not be purely a product of knowledge or instruction, but rather an inherent aspect of human nature?
Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is a treatise on moral philosophy written by the Greek philosopher Aristotle in c. 350 BC. It is one of the most influential works in political philosophy and ethics, providing an analysis of human nature, virtue and happiness. In chapter 7 of Book 1, Aristotle argues that happiness, or eudaimonia, is a state of flourishing, which involves both living well and doing good. He defines well as excellence ariter in a certain activity or action, while doing good refers to actions that are morally right or virtuous. Aristotle distinguishes between happiness and pleasure or contentment, arguing that true happiness is not reducible to these lower forms of pleasure, but rather entails living well and doing good according to one's nature as a human being. In chapter 9 of Book 2, he outlines the concept of virtue, which involves a balance between two extremes, excess hypertrophy or deficiency atropia. Virtue is said to lie in the middle position, where someone possesses the right amount of both qualities. Aristotle argues that virtuous behavior is characterized by moderation and is essential for happiness. He also notes that virtue cannot be developed overnight, but requires practice and training. In chapter X of Book 2, he discusses the importance of friendship in a happy life. According to Aristotle, true friendships are based on mutual respect and admiration, where each person helps and supports the other without expecting anything in return. Happiness is said to be enhanced by healthy relationships with others, as well as by living in harmony with nature. Finally, in chapter D of Book 3, he presents his famous golden mean theory of virtue, where true happiness involves balancing the extremes of excess and deficiency while aiming for a midpoint or middle position. This is seen as a key aspect of Aristotle's thought on ethics, which has influenced thinkers throughout history.